So now that you have chosen your topic and been assigned to a group, as we start the service learning project, I think it's really important to talk about professionalism and placements. And this isn't just in reference to your service learning project. This includes any placements you may have in the future. Internships, externships, volunteer hours, or simply just a job that you may have. So it is important as a social worker to really have a level of standards that we adhere to. We are working with vulnerable individuals and very protected information related to health or treatment or services. And so social workers typically have pretty strict guidelines. These are things that allow us to direct our behaviors and protect our clients and ourselves. So as you are working on your service learning project and any future experience out in the field, one important concept to understand is the importance of professionalism. So what is a good definition of professionalism? Merriam-Webster simply says it is the conduct, aims, or qualities that characterize or mark a profession or a professional person. So that's a good definition, but what does that actually mean for the field of social work? So what qualities mark a professional social worker? Really, it's the ability to develop and use skills in several different areas. Typically, social workers have really good self-management skills. So this is the ability to maintain ethical behavior and follow those principles of social work, even when no one's watching, and really being able to manage your emotions. Typically, social workers also have really strong communication skills. We're able to verbalize concerns, feel comfortable communicating with the supervisor. Typically, we're also really good at referring to individuals respectfully and using that appropriate language. It's also important to be able to mitigate risk and safeguard privacy. So this simply means reporting any concerns about client safety, maintaining that confidentiality, and treating clients ethically and respectfully. And the last is really having those leadership skills, taking initiative, being willing to help others. So let's say you're in a community that doesn't have a specific type of parenting class. It's not uncommon for a social worker to say, you know what, I think we really need this in our community. Okay, we need to write a grant or develop it or partner with an agency to be able to create this class. So what do those skills look like in a placement? So in a placement with self-management, this might include things like tracking your hours appropriately, being punctual. We've all had to wait in a doctor's office for a long period of time. It's really important for us to be punctual and make sure that we are serving our clients by showing up when we say we're going to show up. It also includes not having to be reminded multiple times of your schedule or your responsibilities, typically completing your hours, and really what's important is monitoring and controlling any inappropriate reactions. Sometimes in this field, you're faced with situations that maybe are difficult or we have kind of a knee-jerk reaction to. So an example might be you are, doing an internship at the food bank and you're serving meals to individuals who are struggling with homelessness. Maybe they haven't bathed in a while and they haven't been able to wash their clothes. So a knee-jerk reaction might be like, wow, they smell strongly. But a really good social worker, and part of that self-management is kind of monitoring that and making sure that we are not making a face or using language that's not appropriate, but really still being polite and smiling and making sure that we're treating everybody like human beings. It also might mean dressing appropriately, and things that are comfortable. A lot of times when I was a therapist, I did a lot of play therapy. So I was sitting on the ground with kids and standing up. So just making sure that I was in clothing that was professional. It looked nice, but was still comfortable and appropriate and allowed me to do what I needed to do. And a placement in the communication category, this might include things like asking for help. It is really common, even as social workers who have been doing it for a long time, to ask peers or colleagues or supervisors, hey, I've got this really difficult case. Can you help me with it? It's also communicating appropriately with the supervisor and really making sure you're using that appropriate language and referring to individuals respectfully. And this includes behind closed doors. Sometimes it's easy when people are overwhelmed to kind of use language that's very stigmatizing or demeaning when they think clients can't hear. But really, we need to be using appropriate language and referring to the individuals respectfully all the time. And then making sure you're contacting a supervisor if you're unable to make it or going to be late. This way they can maybe communicate with clients or let them know why you're not there, which is really important. Under the category of mitigating risk and safeguarding privacy, this could be things like reporting any concerning behavior to your supervisor or your instructor, depending on the situation. It means following all safety measures at the site. So when I worked at a psychiatric hospital, it was things like we couldn't wear open-toed shoes or shoes that didn't have a back. Sometimes individuals were struggling and we had to make sure that we were working with them and engaged, and making sure we weren't tripping or unsafe was really important. It also means that we understand and maintain confidentiality. It means you don't go home to your partner or your friends and say, oh my gosh, I saw Joe at the treatment center. I can't believe he's in treatment again, right? It's really making sure we're maintaining that confidentiality. We have to be following directions to avoid unsafe situations. Sometimes, depending on what's going on, you might be part of an unsafe situation and you really want to make sure that you are following all of those measures. Don't give any details to friends or family, and please, no social media. One thing that a lot of social workers get in trouble for sometimes is accidentally sharing information or too many details on social media. Even in the large social worker group where we can all kind of staff and share, we have to be careful that I don't say, hey, I need treatment providers for a 13-year-old boy who goes to a Waihe Elementary, who lives in Caldwell and lives with both parents and mom's a teacher, right? Too many details. So we have to be really careful of that. Lastly, in that category of leadership, there's a whole lot of things that you can even do there. Even if you're just starting out or you're an intern or you're new, you can take initiative. Are there things that maybe individuals are talking about that there's a need for? Even with this virtual service learning project, what if there is information and you want to go above and beyond? That's okay, and that's important. It's part of that leadership. It means being willing to help others and do what tasks are requested within reason, right? So we want to make sure that we're safe and you're not doing anything that's inappropriate, but it really is going above and beyond and helping coworkers or peers, your group members, doing what needs to be done to make sure that the individuals that you're helping are getting the resources they need. And just being open to feedback, right? Sometimes our natural defense is to be a little like, I don't want to hear that. But I think as a good social worker, we always need that feedback to learn and grow. So professionalism, even in our virtual service learning project, is still very important. So this could be things like respectful communication with your peers and your group members in the Idaho Food Bank. Making sure that if you are sending an email or uploading materials, that they are using appropriate and respectful communication. We also want to make sure that we're using respectful person first language when you are creating those materials. So if you're creating an educational tool, you shouldn't put things like 40% of addicts, right? We want to put 40% of people affected by substance use disorder. Or you don't want to say 10% of people are homeless, right? It might be 10% of individuals who are struggling with insecure housing or are affected by homelessness. We want to make sure that you take the time to really create thoughtful, appropriate facts, not just throwing something together haphazardly or using information that's not appropriate or just quickly paraphrase. We really want to be thoughtful about how the information will be used and how it can help our community. We also want to make sure we're using those appropriate sources and information. As many of you are aware, over the last few months especially, there's been a lot of misinformation and confusing articles and news reports and opinion pieces about what is going on in our community and our state and our country. And so making sure that when you're working on this project, you are using appropriate, well-researched, peer-reviewed sources is really important. We don't want to be part of the misinformation. We want to create things that are helpful and useful and true. And then the last is we really want to make sure we create materials that address a diverse group of individuals. If you are creating a handout that has pictures, does everybody in your picture look the same, right? Do you have representation of different racial or ethnic groups? Do you have pictures of different genders? Do you have pictures of individuals who identify as non-binary or transgender, right? So you want to make sure that you are really creating materials that address a diverse group of individuals, and that can be things as simple as the pictures we use or the wording we use. So remember, professionalism is really important in placements or jobs that you're working or volunteer opportunities, internships, anytime you're interacting with the public. It's really important to have that professionalism. Remember, it helps us grow as individuals. So when we're acting professionally, we're punctual, we're showing up on time, we're communicating well, it allows us then to have that time to really grow and practice our skills. It allows us to really best serve our clients and the individuals that we work with, right? If I'm there and I'm not flustered because I didn't show up late and I'm using respectful language, really then I can focus on the client and their needs instead of kind of stressing about other things that maybe are related to my own professionalism. It's important to acknowledge that your behaviors pave the way for others. Let's say you do an internship and you just really struggle. You're not real professional. You don't show up on time. You're not consistent. Sometimes you may have a supervisor that says, I'm never going to have an intern again. That was such a bad experience. So really thinking not about just the experience that you're having, but your experiences will impact potentially how agencies or organizations or employers view people in the future as well. And lastly, it is a small community. The odds that you're going to work with someone or intern with someone and then potentially work with them later are pretty high. I had an experience when I was in graduate school where I had a supervisor for my internship, and it was a little awkward and there were some issues and I didn't maybe handle it as well as I could. I wasn't unethical, but I just kind of left the internship abruptly and she was really taken aback. Well, 10 years later, I was working as a counselor, and guess who they hired as the new counselor? My previous supervisor. Luckily, she was so professional and handled it really well. But I had to realize, wow, a lot of what I did, even new in my career, I'm still working and having overlap with people later on. So it's important to know that even as an intern or even as a student, you may have some interactions with others that may impact your career later on. So you really want to make sure you're displaying that professionalism when you're doing things.